Hello, and welcome to another great year. My name is Amy Bennett, and I am the deaf ed teacher here at Crowley High School. I want to share with you some information about our student that you may have in your class and kind of what to expect this year. Some of the students you will have in your classroom will be deaf or hard of hearing. What does that mean? That means that these students have classes in the mainstream classroom, but they need additional communication support. So some of our students will have an interpreter with them. Before we go into discussing the interpreter's responsibilities, I want to first discuss how you can set up your classroom. Now, I know that not everyone will have a perfect world classroom. We know this. So what I'm going to ask is when setting up your seating arrangements, you kind of think about your student. One of the things we ask is try to have that student sit in the front near where you'll be standing and lecturing. The reason why is because some of our students have hearing aids or cochlear implant, and that will help them to hear. It doesn't improve their hearing, but it helps to make sound louder, or it helps to make sound clearer. If at all possible, when doing small groups with your students, have them sit in a horseshoe shape or a semicircle, or even just a small group facing each other so that your student has the opportunity to be successful. The other thing we want you to take into consideration is the lighting in your classroom. I know some classrooms will have either really bright lighting or very dark lighting. If you're like me and you like those low lights, that's fine. But just remember that when you're sitting in the front giving your lesson, your student may not be able to see what you're saying because they'll be reading your lips or watching your facial expression. Now, reading lips is not 100%, and a very small amount of people are able to catch everything on the lip. So we want to make sure that our students are seeing your facial expressions clearly so that they can be set up for success. I also want to talk about hearing aids and cochlear implants. What's the difference? What's that mean? Hearing aids help to make sound louder. Doesn't necessarily make things clearer. Cochlear implants help to make things clearer, not necessarily louder. So there is a difference. All of our students should have an FM mic with them. What is that? That's really just a mic that we take and we clip it to our shirt. Usually it's your thumb to your pinky is about where you want to clip that so that your voice will go through the mic to the student. Now, will all of our students have that? No, not all of them. Why? They just don't want it. And at high school, we try to encourage them, but sometimes it's a losing battle. So if a student comes to you and asks you to put your microphone on, please do so. That gives your student equal access the same kind of access that a hearing student would have. Also, just a warning, if you have a mic on and you need to leave the room, take the mic off, because if you're going to use the restroom, I'll leave the rest to your imagination. Also in your room, you may see that your student will have an adult, not with them, but in the classroom for you to communicate to your student. Now, the interpreters are not there for the student, they are there for you. Let me back that up. I'm sorry. The interpreters are there to help facilitate communication between you and your student. What they will do is they will interpret what you're saying in class. So if you're discussing, science, and you're talking about cells, or you're talking about dissecting frogs or whatever, that interpreter will be doing the same thing. They will be telling the student what you are saying through their hand. Now, not every student will look at the interpreter. Some students will look at you also, but have that interpreter there for them for that support when needed. The important thing to remember is that when you're speaking, kind of forget that the interpreter's in the room. Over time, that will happen, but we want to make sure that our student is getting the necessary communication and the information that they need. Your interpreter will be a great resource to help you ask any question that maybe I can't answer in that moment for you. The interpreter will also speak for the student. If the student does not use their voice and they only sign, and if you hear someone talking, it's not the interpreter talking, it's the student talking through the interpreter. Okay, so we will also want to make sure that you treat your deaf or hard of hearing student the same way you would treat a hearing student. If they have a question, look at that student and ask them, what is your question? Don't look at the interpreter and say, ask them what their question is. It's not how that works. We want to make sure that we are giving our students as much autonomy as possible so that they know that their education is important and they have the same access as our hearing students. The other thing you might see in your classroom is maybe a note taker. Now, understand that our students can't look at you, look at the interpreter, and look at the board and take notes all at the same time. It's not possible. So what I'm asking, if we don't have someone come in your room and take notes for that student, I'm asking that whatever notes you have for your classes, that your deaf and hard of hearing student get a copy of those notes, that they again have access to your class. Also, sometime I may come in and visit the classroom, not to take over your class or to teach for you, but more to observe and help my student get their full education experience. Maybe sometimes, something you're saying they don't understand, I can take a note. When we go back in class, I'll meet with that student and we will discuss so that they understand it more. The other important thing that we need to make sure we have are accommodations. Okay, we know that all of our deaf and hard of hearing students will need written notes. We know that they will need copies of those notes. It is also important to have closed captioning on your video. If you are getting ready to show a video in class, please make sure before you show it that it has closed captions for our students. Again, that's equal access for them. Very important also that their accommodations are met. Some of our students may have small group testing. If you're testing, you can send them to my room and I will sit with them while they take the test. If a student has, an interpreter, please make sure there is a place for that interpreter to sit. If they have closed captioning on their IEP and arts, please make sure that those videos are closed captioned. If you can't close caption that video, please send me an email and I will make sure that it gets captioned. Okay. The other thing that we need that's very important, not only for our students, but also for hearing students, is to have as much visual support in your classroom as possible. Pictures, vocabulary words, posters, anchor charts, anything that helps our students make a connection. Because remember, all of their communication is here. It's not here for some of our students. Some of our students also read at a low level. Just because they're in the gen ed class doesn't always mean they are reading at that grade level. So what we do is after your classes are finished, they come back to me and we discuss what happened in class. Where do they need that additional support? I may email you and say, hey, Coach Sells, what were we discussing about, the Western expansion? What were some of the vocabulary words? What was the importance of that? And I will go back with our students and I will discuss it with them to help make sure that they understand. There's some myths or fake stories about hearing aids and cochlear implants. And one of the things I want you to understand is that in high school, our students have a choice. They can wear their cochlears, they can wear their hearing aids if they want. But just because they have them doesn't mean that they are fixed. Okay, all these do is just give them added support. That's all. The other thing that's important is when you're presenting, don't yell. It doesn't make things easier or better for them to hear. It just makes you loud. And that can be uncomfortable for some of our students who have hearing aids or cochlear implants because of the sound. Some ways to get their attention, or small groups, or just some clues that your student might need some help. If you need to get their attention, don't tell the interpreter, will you get their attention for me? The interpreter is not there to do that job. The interpreter there is only to facilitate communication. That's all. If you need to get the student's attention, tap them on the shoulder, tap on the table, the same as you would a hearing student. If you have a large group of deaf children in your class and they are all talking and you're trying to get their attention, you can turn the lights on and off. The same for hearing kids. If you see that the student looks like they're tired, or maybe they put their head down on the desk, it's possible they are suffering from visual fatigue or listening fatigue. Because we're taking in all of our information in our eyes, it can become tiresome. And it's something that if you have a signal you want your student to know, to let you know that this class has been hard today, or previous classes have been hard, I need a break, that's okay. We will always go back and give them that information later. I know that this is a lot of information, and I'm going to add some readings for you at the end of this on a whiteboard so that when you have time, you can go ahead and you can read this information on your own. If you have any question, please email me, text me, stop me in the hallways and say, hey, I have a question. How can I help? We want this to be a successful year for all of our students and for you. Thank you very much for your time and have a great day.